Hello and welcome. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us for the D&O Questionnaire Feature Spotlight. It's 2:01, so we're going to get started. This is a little bit of a new format for us. We're going to keep this to 20 minutes, we promise. And we just want to introduce you to a new feature and give you some insight into it so that you have better information as you think about how it might be useful for your organization. So we'll jump right in. I'll do a quick intro of my colleagues. Mike and Adarsh are joining me on the webinar today. Adarsh is an attorney, so he has some interesting perspective on this feature and some good background for us. And what we want to do, really from an agenda perspective, is there's our pictures, Mike and others. Thanks for joining today. I'm Doug Wilson, VP of Product, and I lead product strategy and design for the OnBoard team.
Yeah, I can jump in here. Thanks, Doug. Just from an agenda standpoint, we really want to spend some time just talking quickly about what D&O questionnaires truly are. We'll share some best practices, and then our colleague Michael will kind of run through a demo, and throughout we'll have some time here at the end for Q&A. Just a quick housekeeping matter. I have muted everyone from the outset just to kind of for clarity's purposes, but we do want to hear from everyone. So please drop your questions directly into the Q&A button. And if you're having any technical issues or need some help, please raise your hand. But we want to hear from everyone, and we'll do our best to answer as many questions as we can. So what are D&O questionnaires? At a high level, they're questionnaires that are often distributed by a company to their directors and officers to identify conflicts and also complete necessary regulatory filings. So on a regular basis, oftentimes companies need to collect information to accurately complete filings like their annual 10Ks or S1s. There are often information requested in those filings that the company just simply doesn't have. So the questionnaire is a means to help collect that information and ensure its accuracy. So we have questions that are often focused on individuals' backgrounds, what their ownership may be in that company, what, if any, familial relationships they might have. It's all really intended to ensure the accuracy of those findings, ensure independence, and avoid those opportunities for error that can occur, so we can kind of avoid those types of conflict issues. One common scenario is when a company first registers with the SEC, in contemplating maybe a public offering, that kind of triggers some of the regular filing requirements. But generally speaking, D&O questionnaires are really a good tool from an overall governance standpoint. They help just with the hygiene of the organization, making sure you're avoiding those conflicts and making sure you're truly ensuring the independence of the activities of your board and directors, so individuals can have utmost confidence in the decisions that you make. Doug, you want to share some best practices here?
Yeah, thanks for covering that. And one thing I wanted to comment on, one of the reasons why we did want to go over sort of what is the D&O questionnaire is because in some of the conversations we've had sort of leading up to launching this feature, there's been a little confusion over what exactly that is and how it's used. And so I think that was an important piece. From a best practices perspective, first is just make sure you're involving your legal team, whether that's in-house or whether you're using an external legal team. Make sure you're involving them from the start. In many cases, you're starting with sort of last year's questionnaire and then making updates based on any necessary adjustments. But getting that legal group plugged in from the very beginning, and usually a general counsel is involved based on our experience so far with a lot of customer conversations. The second, and really the area that we focused on in terms of building out this feature, was around just making it easy, trying to remove friction for both the board members, the officers, and the admins that are having to both create the questionnaire and then administer it until it's completed. So really focusing on improving turnaround time and visibility to where things stand in the process, and then giving you then more time on the reviewing and analyzing of the results as needed, and less time on sort of the administration was our goal. And then, another piece would just be requiring that all new board members are doing this. So regardless of whether or not it's hitting in your normal sort of annual cycle for the D&O questionnaire, if you have a board member that's coming in at some point mid-year, making sure that they're also filling out the questionnaire would be another best practice that we would want to touch on. And then I'll just talk a little bit about sort of transparency for everyone. We do think that every organization should be screening their directors and officers for conflicts, sort of regardless of whether or not it's a legal requirement. And in some cases, there is sort of a right size. So the last couple slides ago, we identified the average questionnaire is 40 pages long, 65 questions. That's not for everyone, and we know that in some organizations you might just have, just might have a few questions on a single page, and whether or not this is the right tool for you in terms of the D&O functionality, it may not be if you have sort of a smaller use case, but still the practice from a governance perspective is something that we would just highlight as important, regardless of your organization. And then the last piece, and I'll ask you to kind of weigh in on this one as well, but again, through some of our conversations, there's the very sort of formal process of D&O questionnaires, and that's really what we've built this functionality around specifically, but we also know that it does apply in other areas, sort of general compliance questionnaires, things like bank filings as an example. And so again, you'll have to weigh with your CS team whether or not this is the right solution for those things. But if you're using it for D&O questionnaires, we think there's some additional use cases that you may find really relevant here. There's anything you'd add?
Yeah, thanks, Doug. No, absolutely. I think you hit it on the head. Is that I would just add, the functionality is applicable to those other scenarios. So you mentioned bank filing. So for example, there may be some Reg O filings that a bank might need to have where they're reporting, anytime they extend credit to a director or officer. So the type of information and the tools and the opportunity to kind of collect information from your directors can be applicable in that scenario. It's really just helpful anytime an organization is a fiduciary and really needs to demonstrate independence. So the opportunity to kind of collect that information from your directors can be valuable in any of those scenarios.
Great. All right. Well, now we're going to have Mike walk us through a D&O demo, and then we'll kind of follow up with some additional thoughts and give everyone a little bit of time for some Q&A.
All right, let's talk about D&O questionnaires through OnBoard. For our first step, go ahead and click on the Create Questionnaire button in the top right. Once you do that, plug in the basic details of the questionnaire, including title, start date, end date, and a brief description and any instructions you need to provide of the questionnaire itself. From there, you can indicate whether or not a signature is going to be required and if a saved signature is allowed to be used. Finally, at the bottom, you're able to add any supporting documents as needed. And it's important to note that this is also available within on the question level itself. So if you need to add supporting documents on a specific question, you have the ability to do that. Finally, when you're good to go here, click Save Changes to move on to the next screen. From there, you're able to actually assign the questionnaire out. So you can do this on an individual level or by group. Once you have everyone assigned to the questionnaire it needs to be, go ahead and move on to actually creating the questions themselves. From there, you've got a few different types of questions you can utilize: true or false, yes or no, multiple choice, single choice, or free-form text field that allow them to type out their responses. Once you've settled on the type, go ahead and enter your question prompt there. Indicate whether or not the question is required, and then depending on your type of question, so if you have a multiple choice, you can go ahead and edit the response options you have here. And then you can also check this box below to allow for write-in responses for this question. So this is particularly handy if you have a multi-part question. So if you have a yes/no question, and if somebody answers yes and they need to provide more details, this will allow them a section to write in those additional details. Finally, at the bottom, you see where you can actually attach supporting documents to the question itself. You simply add document there and you're able to attach it. From there, when you're done with the question, move up to the top and click Save Changes. To add your next question, you just simply click Add New Question and then click this box here. From there, you just indicate your question type, plug in your question, again, indicate whether or not it's going to be required. You can edit the response options depending on the type of question you have. You can, again, check to allow for write-in responses for the question. And then finally, you can attach any supporting documents you have at the bottom. From there, when you're done with this question, again, click Save Changes and repeat the process for each question you have. Once you've got all of your questions added, go ahead and go up to the top here and click Save Changes. Now, one really great feature of our D&O questionnaire tool is it allows you to pre-fill answers. So we know this will save a lot of time and effort for your board members or really anyone who's going to be taking the questionnaire. So what you do is you go down here to each individual user and click the buttons off to the right, and you'll be able to select pre-fill answers. Now, there's an important thing to note here is that if you use the D&O questionnaire tool year over year, you can actually import the answers from one year to the next. So if I use the same questionnaire basically in 2020 as I use in 2021, I just simply copy the 2020 version, use it for 2021, import those responses from the prior year and save myself a lot of effort. But once you go through and indicate all the answers you need to, you've got everything pre-filled, you've set everybody up to where they basically just have to go through and if it's not a new question, it's the same as the prior year, just review the prior year's responses and make sure it's good to go. Once you reach that point and you've got everything set, you can go ahead and open it up to the floor so they can complete the questionnaire. The way you do that is move up here where it says draft, click open, and now everyone who is assigned the questionnaire can begin filling it out. They'll get an email alert if it's set up on their profile. They'll also get an alert when they log into OnBoard that they've been assigned this questionnaire. Now, as they're going through and completing the questionnaire, there's a few different things that you can do if you're the admin to really just kind of track where the progress is at. One of the things you can do here is really click these buttons off to the right of each user and be able to indicate, number one, you're just able to review the questions as they're submitted. So in this case, you see here, you're just going through, you're not able to edit, but you're able to review and just make sure that all the questions are answered and all the answers, fit for each question. Once you're good to go there, you can hop back and click Mark Reviewed. That'll just let everyone know that that question has been reviewed and it's good to go. Now, if you have someone who's a little bit of a straggler or someone who just hasn't quite gotten their questionnaire done, you can also send a reminder letting them know they need to go ahead and get it completed. Pretty straightforward there. But once you review everything, once you've got everyone completed, all the questionnaires are done, now you move up here to export submissions, and you can go ahead and download all of them, or you can export to the resources folder. From there, you just simply select which folder you want to save it into and click save. That's it for the admin. As the screen shows here, what we're going to go ahead and do now is really view the end result. If I'm a director, officer, or really anyone who's taken the questionnaire, what can I expect to see? Now, once I see that alert, I know I've got to take this questionnaire. I simply hop into OnBoard, click on the questionnaire, review all the supporting materials up here, and click the Start Questionnaire button when I'm ready. Now, as we talked about before, we can pre-fill some of the answers, so this can really be a pretty straightforward process for them. They simply go through, review any pre-filled answers, make sure they're still true, make any adjustments as needed, and then once I'm good to go, I can go up to the top there and click the Submit Response button, and you'll see here that I'm able to affix my signature to the submission. Once I click the Submit button, I'm all set. From there, process is done. I've submitted the questionnaire and everything's good to go. Again, D&O questionnaires, definitely something we think is going to provide a lot of value and really help streamline the D&O questionnaire process for you. Excellent. So really from here, we want to review a few takeaways. And really the main thing I think to keep in mind here is the fact that this is really designed to help make this process as simple and as efficient as possible for you. And that's one of the reasons we allowed it to really pre-populate those responses. So again, you can plug those in ahead of time and really save a lot of effort for not only yourself in the future, but also for your board members or really anyone who's going to be filling it out. You're also going to be able to attach documents for reference, even in the question level. So instead of having to do what maybe like a 40, 50 page document where you have to spell everything out, you can provide attachments to where if they need to review for additional details, they can do so just by clicking a button. What you also have is additional text fields. So if you have a multi-part question, hey, if you answer yes to this, you have a very simple spot you can go through and plug that information in. At the end of the day, the whole idea is to just make this a very simple and efficient process. And really, the other great thing about this as well is you can track the response rate. So what I mean by that is that after you open it up, again, as I showed in the demo there, you can actually see the progress of each person's submission. So if they've started it, if it's been reviewed, you'll be able to look that over and just make sure that, hey, everything's getting done on time, and then you can get it in by the deadline or when you need it. And of course, as with everything else we do, it's really designed to have that same look and feel within the onboard platform. You're also getting the added security, of course, that comes with anything you do within onboard, and it's really just a smooth and efficient process for you. And a couple things I wanted to highlight as well is the fact that these are actually some services we provide, and really in year one of taking on the D&O questionnaire tool with us and adding it as a feature on your platform, on your account, is that we actually build out one questionnaire for you. So up to 75 questions, we will take care of that for you. We'll take the work off your plate. Again, as I mentioned earlier, we're actually able to pre-populate responses from the prior year as needed. So that can definitely save you some effort there, as we talked about. And again, as I mentioned, this is something that's going to be included at no cost in your first year. So just an easy transition, a great way to start using the tool with as minimal input from you as possible. Really just make it a very simple transition and make it an efficient process. So a few things to highlight here as well is really just to go over the type of questions and what you can expect to see with the D&O within the D&O questionnaire. Really, as I alluded to in the demo, you're able to see a number of different type of questions you're able to submit. So you've got check boxes, radio buttons, those true or false, yes or no, text response, which is pretty key because again, as you're having those sections where you may have a multi-part question, you're able to have the space to be able to fill it out. That's going to differ a bit from what you saw with the survey tool, just because again, it's just the increased functionality and it's just a more robust system for being able to answer those more complicated questions, especially what you typically see on that D&O questionnaire form. One thing we wanted to highlight is kind of the upcoming features for the tool is going to be the ability to upload files. This will be handy, especially as our board members are going through and answering questions. If they need to, upload any supporting documentation, that'll be a functionality that becomes available here in the near future. We're also going to be working on dynamic questions. So really what that means is I was talking about before about the multi-part questions. Again, one of those, hey, if answered yes, please provide more details. Well, basically what we'll be able to do is if they do answer yes, a box will pop up. A little bit different than what it is currently now, but the whole idea is to make it, again, just a very seamless and very easy process to follow. And then finally, we'll also be able to just provide a more robust platform when it comes to the answers themselves. And really, we know some of the responses are going to be more of a table-based setup. We're going to allow that functionality as well. So a number of cool things coming down the pipe for the tool, and it's just only going to get better as we move along. Finally, we wanted to ask the question to open this up to the group, and we're going to open a poll question below is how many questions is your current D&O conflict questionnaire? So if you can, take a moment, fill out the poll, and we'll review the response when we see it. So it definitely looks like the majority is coming in that 1 to 10 range. We do see quite a few in the 11 to 40 and certainly some in the 41 to 70. And I think a big part of what we're seeing with some of these forms, and Adarsh, feel free to jump in here if you have anything else to add. But really for me, it really just highlights the fact that some of these questions are, even though they may be a small number of questions, they may be complicated or they have a number of different parts to them. We certainly understand that, and that's really what this tool is designed to really help accomplish, is really simplify that process and make it easy to answer those questions.
No, thanks, Michael. I honestly, you kind of hit it on the head. Don't really have any other career points to add on that front.
Excellent. Well, hey, and one thing we wanted to open up to everybody, I know we're kind of at the 20-minute mark, but since we're sending everyone a $5 gift card for Starbucks, we had to know, hey, what is your go-to holiday drink? I can tell you all, for me, it is the chestnut praline. I'm probably the only person out there. I'm sure I'm the only reason it's still on the menu, but I just absolutely love that drink. Every year I wait for it to come available, and as soon as it does, I jump at it. So okay, I don't know if anyone else is there. We got quite a few something else. I'm just gonna put all the something else in my box, firmly in the chestnut praline corner. I'm sure I'm probably the only one though. Looks like something else takes it, but of the ones on here, peppermint mocha and salted caramel hot chocolate. You can't go wrong with either of those two. I would agree. So excellent. What we want to do is open it up to Q&A here. Again, I know we're at the 20-minute mark, but we do want to make sure we have opportunity to answer your questions. So we'll go through and see what we have available at this point. So one of the questions was launch. I know that's something that's come up. We have a tentative release date of Monday evening. So we're going to say likely be available next Tuesday, especially as you come into the day. It is something that is an additional feature. If you are interested in it, certainly reach out to, you can definitely put your comment here on the, in the webinar itself, and then we can be in touch for sure. You can also reach out to your customer service manager, who can certainly help with that as well, or customer success manager, excuse me. Just reach out if you're interested in learning more. We can certainly be happy to connect and talk through it.
Michael, I've seen one of the questions coming up is just where does it actually get saved? Will there be individual director questionnaires, or will it be saved in resources? Can you maybe just touch on again, just like how that's exported and saved?
Yeah, so you do have the ability to export at the individual submitter level. So if you need to export a specific person's responses, you can certainly do that. You can save the complete file, which is going to have everybody's responses. You can save within the file resources folder within OnBoard. And the only folks that are going to be able to view that, which I definitely want to bring this up, are going to be folks who would have access to that file and who would have access to that questionnaire to begin with. So once you save it there, it's not going to be something that would be posted for everybody to view. And we know it's important, especially because there's obviously some private information there. But you would be able to export it as well. You can do it at the individual user level again, or as a complete package.
That's great. Thank you.
No problem. So look at some of the questions we have. One of the big ones I know is the ability to have subsections. So, basically a 7A, 7B, 7C. I certainly understand that. We do have an ability to do it, and we can certainly work with you and show you how that's accomplished. But we have ability to basically create those sub questions. It's just a matter of what the look and feel is going to be. And we can go through that in more detail as we actually can go through your specific use case and give you a good idea of what that looks like.
Mike, great job. How are we doing on Q&A? I know we're at 23 after, so we're 3 minutes over. We'll wrap it up quickly, but we don't want to leave anybody out.
Yeah, and I know that one of the final questions that I had that was going to jump at was that David Robson submitted, and that was, is the respondent able to review the respondents in a manner other than scrolling through, such as a PDF view or basically what you could do is you could open it up and you could export the individual. So let's just say that instead of going through and you wanted to review it with an OnBoard platform, you would be able to export it at that level. So instead of just clicking in and reviewing it there, you export it out and you should be able to view it within like a PDF format to be able to view it that way, if that's easier for you to utilize.
Yeah, that's a great question. And David, if you want to follow up more on that, if you have additional questions based on Mike's comments there, we'd be happy to drill into that more. Well, hey, we probably should wrap up. Thanks so much. Like I said, this is a new format for us. We want to keep it short, and we appreciate you taking time with the OnBoard team today. I hope this was beneficial for you and informative. And as Mike said, feel free to reach out to your CSM if you have additional questions or interest. And yeah, have a great